Should be live shortly. What's going on? Don't tell me it started a new one. Oh yeah, live.
Yo, what up, Knicks Nation? Welcome back to another Game of the Week preview. Of course, we got to get ready for the New York Knicks taking on the Indiana Pacers. They'll be in Indy, all right? So it'll be Jalen Brunson versus Tyrese Halliburton and the gang. So we'll see who's going to come out victorious in this matchup. And with me on the other side to help preview this game is none other than Tony East. He covers the Indiana Pacers and the Indiana Fever as well for Forbes Sports, and also he covers the Indiana Pacers for Locked On Pacers. So make sure to stay locked in. Hit that thumbs up button for your boys. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so, and remember to support our sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. Use that promo code KFTV to get up to $1,000 in instant bonus cash and a free pick. All right, guys. Welcome, Knicks Nation. Welcome, Tony. Welcome back to the show. How you feeling, my man?
Pretty good. Pacer schedule is crazy. Trade deadline's gone. Fever free agency's been killing me, so I'm great. But my sleep schedule says that I'm not so great.
Your sleep schedule says you're not doing great. I mean, your fingers are probably working overtime right now. You know, your voice is working overtime. I mean,
That's
I get
right.
it, man. There's a lot going on for you, and I appreciate the time that you are giving us tonight to help get ready for this matchup, man. It's a good one. It's a good one. Always good when we get Knicks Pacers. So let me ask you first: what has been your thoughts about the New York Knicks this season thus far?
Yeah, I enjoy that they're like more variety and the ways they can dominate you on offense, right? They're such a top offense, and it's not just because Brunson is amazing, although he is. Even though of late it feels like teams have figured out, like, hey, let's just throw a big wing on him and see how that jams things up. But some nights it's Cat crushing the glass and setting up everybody else, or setting up himself, and some nights it's Brunson has the right matchup and he can really get going. Now Bridges has figured his early season yuckiness out, and he looks great sometimes. And their bench makes sense. Like, they just every night it feels like have a different way for their offense to be really good. And I think that's so impressive because it's very un-Tibbsy to me that their defense isn't like really good. It's just okay. So the fact that they're able to still be this good and still have such a strong record, even though they, still, I think you guys would admit, have struggled against like the highest quality teams. Most everyone else they find really good ways to score and run their stuff, or at least find something that is going to work for them. Tibbs has been really pushing the buttons on offense this year. I find that very interesting. It's so not what I'm used to from him.
I know Tom Thibodeau is shocking the entire world, saying, "Hey, I can do a little bit of offense as well," and that's exactly right. I mean, we watched anybody can get 40, even OG Anunoby against the Denver Nuggets earlier this season, and that's just the best thing about this offense. That, as you noted, the versatility. Anybody can cut you up, and that's cool. That's great. Defense, that's the thing that's got to get worked on, and we saw that against the Boston Celtics the other night. I'm trying to erase that from my memory. I need the Men in Black, pen just to come out here and just whoop. I don't need to remember that anymore. And just like against OKC, we still got to defeat the Cavs. The top end teams is like still the measuring stick we're looking for. We're waiting to get that moment where it's like, okay, we're finally arrived. We can hang with these guys, because the rest of the league, that's no problem to us. Like, we can go back and forth with the Rockets. We can go back and forth with the Pacers. We really need to cement our mark as a championship contending team against Boston, Cleveland, OKC. Those are the matches we got to take seriously. And so I think defensively, once we get that figured out, then this team's going to take it up to another notch.
The only game that the opposite happened was that game in OKC, right? Where at the end, Dort was just all over Brunson and they couldn't score at all. They defended pretty well that game. It feels like everyone else, though, you're spot on about. They're so close, but just not quite there.
Yeah, and part of it's also a depth issue with this team too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, we got Precious Achua, Miles McBride. Those are good players. Mitchell Robinson on the way back. I'm expecting him to return after the All-Star break. Reports from Shams is that the Knicks are expecting him to return before March 1st. So then you get your eighth guy right there, and then Campaign. He's been up and down. That's just kind of the nature of who he is. He's your energy guy. So like when he's going, like everybody's revved up. When he's not going, it's like, all right, man, get your butt back on the bench. We need to figure things out a little bit. So that's just where the Knicks are at this point. But what about the Indiana Pacers, man? Because follow a lot of you guys on Twitter, man. Just after the series last year, that seven game series that we had, and it seems like things were going great. Then down, up and down, up and down. Tyrese Halliburton's not playing like how he's supposed to be playing. What's going on with the Indiana Pacers right now?
Yeah, their season is like a clean cut at 25 games. So the first half of this current season was terrible. They were 10 and 15. They couldn't beat Charlotte. They couldn't beat Toronto. They couldn't beat Brooklyn. They struggled against everybody, right? They are only at a decent record because They had a 4-game homestand that was like New Orleans, Portland, Detroit, and someone else bad that they could get through, or else they might have had a really rough record early. And like the one of the best games they played in the first 25 games was that Knicks game in Indy where Tyrese Halliburton had maybe his best game of the season still to date. Mathurin was great,
Mm.
Siakam was great, right? That was maybe their best night of the year. But then after that 25th game, they got beat by Charlotte at home. They've been like the third best record in the NBA ever since. They've been really tough to beat. Their offense has been close to last year. Their defense has been legitimately good, which is so weird to say about the Pacers. And they figure, I know, it's still weird. People
It's
laugh,
like
but
the
it's
Knicks
true.
and the Pacers just swap positions,
That's
man.
right.
What's going
That's
on
right.
here?
Some Freaky Friday situations going on with that, right? Yeah, it's really strange. And they had the best Eastern Conference record in January. Carlisle won Coach of the Month, right? Like they were playing very well and beating good teams throughout the month, right? They beat Boston in the stretch. They beat Phoenix twice. They beat everybody out west. They played except the Lakers without LeBron somehow. Like they're beating everybody and they look good. Very recently, like their last 4 games, they've fallen back quite a bit. They can't make a three. Their defense looks weaker, but
Mm.
in general, they're way better now than they were the first 2 times they played the Knicks. The first time they played the Knicks, just push their stuff in, right? So we'll see what the version they get Tuesday is because they did not play well on their recent road trip. They really need a nice bounce back game because I think they still feel good about their direction after how much they turned things around midseason, but very, very recently starting to show a little bit of regression with the break coming up.
Okay, I mean, look, from where they were early in the season, I mean, they're right behind the New York Knicks. Knicks third in the East right now, 34 and 18. You got the Indiana Pacers 1 game under 30. They're 29 and 22. They just lost 1 game. They're 7 and 3 in their last 10. I mean, this team has certainly bounced back and has been more consistent. And I think part of that, with Halliburton playing up and down, I think the big guys who are doing such a good job is been Benedict Mathurin, Pascal Siakam, and Miles Turner, right? Wouldn't you say those are the three guys that have really been, a foundation to their success this season?
Yeah, Halburn's been a lot better since that 25th game. Like he's been not last year's player that was amazing for 3 months, but the All-Star from 2 years ago, and he was probably like the last guy that made it in the East. I'd say
Mm,
mostly he's been about that level since that mid-December rut they hit.
mm.
But yeah, Siakam primarily is their guy. I mean, he's the all-star for a reason. He's just so consistent. Like he very, very rarely has a bad game. He sometimes has like slightly below average games, but he's usually going to give you about what his averages are, right? Somewhere close to 27 and 4 every night. And his defense is solid and he works hard and he leads and he never misses a game. He has not all season, right? Like that has been so reliable for them. When they're bad, he gives them that level, and when they're good, he gives them that level, right? That's really important to have that kind of consistency from your star player. Matherin's really interesting because the Knicks are one of them. There are some matchups where he just looks awesome, right? Like if you can't put the right guy on him and he knows it, like when he knows the ball's coming his way, he's going to be able to make a play. He looks really good. When he's not so sure of what his role is going to look like or what his matchup's going to allow him to do, he hesitates for just a sec, and that kind of breaks up everything. But the Knicks are a team that they have 2 awesome defenders, but if it's hard on him or if it's Brunson on him, then he feels very confident in those matchups, as we've seen the last couple of years. He didn't play in the playoffs, obviously, so he does well against the New Yorks, the Milwaukees, the Bostons of the world, where they put their third guy on him, and then he just has a nice night. And so this particular matchup's good for him. He just did great against the Lakers. He was their by far best player for the first half of that game. But he has some nights where he's not as sure of himself. So it's always interesting to see what version of him is going to show up. Usually it's the good version against New York, though. And yes, Turner's shooting. He's over 40% from deep this year. It's just so reliable for them. Like very few guys actually play like him. So one of the guys who does is Cat, ironically, but yeah, he's been great for them as well. So those are the pillars they get. They haven't had the consistency from anyone but Siakam this year, which is why they're not better than 29 and 22 despite being pretty talented. But if they click on a given night, they've shown they literally can beat anybody. There's a reason they have such a good record against over 500 teams.
Okay. And so, with their recent success, I got to ask because, each team after every season, right, they're on this trajectory of like, what's the goal for this year, right? With the Knicks, look, you traded Julius Randle, Dante DiVincenzo, you got Mikal Bridges after trading, 5 first rounders and a pick swap. And so the impression is, hey, this is a team that is going to be together for 3 to 4 years, maybe even longer. And this is supposed to be the championship caliber team that will take it to the mountaintop. Indy made it to the Eastern Conference Finals last year. Is that the goal for this season as well? What are the expectations for Indy?
Yeah, I think they made it pretty clear after last year that yes, it's good they made the conference finals. They would like to make it every year. Every team would, right? But their original goal entering last year was at some point in the next 5 years to make it. Like they're not blind to the fact that it might be hard to do again. There's some good teams in the East above them. I think they'd be very disappointed to be top four and not win a round, certainly, right? So getting out of the first round is going to be big. And again, they've beaten Cleveland, they've beaten Boston twice, they beat New York. Like I think they can hang with these teams. A 7 game series is different, obviously.
For
Who
sure.
knows what the healthy playoffs would have looked like for them last year. I certainly think they would have beat the Bucks. I don't know about the Knicks in a fully healthy series. I think you guys all listening would say no, they would have lost, right? But regardless, not winning a first round series would be disappointing, certainly. But I think they can make the conference finals again. They're talented enough to do it. Their peak again can hang with literally anybody in the league. It's just they haven't hit it as often this year, and they'll have to find that gear come playoff time and be healthy for it to happen, right? And the basketball gods may not smile upon them this time like last year. But yeah, I certainly think second round is now a goal now that they know they're a top four team and have played at a better level than that the last month and a half. But the top teams are good, right? It's going to be tough to beat them. I don't think they'll be disappointed if they lose to Boston, New York, or Cleveland. But anyone else, I think they'd go, oh, that's not how we thought this would go.
That's kind of how it is for the Knicks right now, right? I mean, you look at Boston, Cleveland. We're like, all right, if we lose to one of those two teams, depending how far we go, that's how the chips land. And I think everybody after the trade, they want to see this team make the Eastern Conference Finals. After last year being just riddled with injuries, and we made it to Game 7 against you guys, and then even in that game, Josh Hart's playing injured, Jalen gets injured. It's like, all right, man, if this team's fully healthy, we don't have OG in this series. Mitch is out, like this is the team now that if we're fully healthy, we should be able to make it that far. And so that's the goal for New York this year. And so it all comes down to, are you fully healthy in the postseason? Who are your matchups? All those things count. And so
Yep.
I get where you're coming from as well, where it's like you should probably like both teams should definitely get out of the first round. They're talented enough where they should both get out of the first round. They proved that they can do that last year, the last couple of years, whatever it may be. And so it's just what's that next step to see what do we have to add on in order to get to that level. So
Well, both
both
of these
teams,
teams have a conflicting interest. The Knicks would very much like the Celtics to get to the 1 seed, and the Pacers would not like the Celtics to get to the 1 seed. So that'll be fun
oh
to
man,
see how that goes.
oh, we all I already know how that goes, man. And it's like, because you don't want to be the team that's just like, you don't want to inflict, like, do the damage to yourself. Like, oh, no, we're not going to win games and drop down to 4. That's just
Right,
crazy.
right.
Then you're ruining your rhythm. Then no team has ever done that, and it's ever worked out for them.
That's the
So,
only thing that sits wrong with me about the Pacers Knicks series from last year. The Knicks were the only team on the last day of the season who said, screw the standings, we're going to try, dang it. Like, we're going to try to win this game. And they did. And if they had made the conference finals, it would have been proof that the basketball gods rewarded them for that effort. And then they got hurt too much. That wasn't fair. Come on.
man, just what the season that truly could have is what could have been. We have no idea. It's just like, it's just I have no idea how to describe it. It's truly just what could have been. It can just live in our machinations, and that's all it is. But salute to Knicks Nation. Thank you all for tuning in for another game of the week preview. With me on the other side is my guy Tony East. He covers the Indiana Pacers and the Indiana Fever for sports, and he also covers the Indiana Pacers for Locked On Pacers. So make sure you give him a follow and go check him out. Make sure that thumbs up button for your boys. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so, and make sure to support our sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. Use their promo code KFTV to get up to $1,000 in instant bonus cash and a free pick. And people, let me tell you about Underdog Fantasy. Look, now that the Super Bowl's over, it's just NBA. We got the NHL. All right, baseball season. If you don't like what's going on for some of your sports, maybe you're looking for baseball season right now. And the cool thing is about Underdog Fantasy is that you can create any ticket using 2 to 8 players from all sports. You can mix and match, and all you got to do is just choose higher and lower on any statistical category and just try to win money that way. It's just that simple. And it's a lot of fun. And then the other part that they got is fantasy draft. So you and your friends can always just decide to, on any given night, play some NBA draft, like CP, JD, and myself. We like to throw in a little lunch money, do a little fantasy draft, and then whoever comes out victorious gets the pie, And all you do is just go buy whatever the fantasy calculation is. You can toggle it yourself, but they usually got their presets for you, so you can do that. Underdog Fantasy is just so much fun to play, so make sure to support our sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. Use that promo code KFTV to get up to $1,000 in instant bonus cash and a free pick. All right, Tony. Let's get to the matchup because that's the real thing. That's what the people are here for, man. They want to know like what's going to happen tomorrow. All right. So we got the Indiana Pacers and the New York Knicks facing off against each other in Indy. And, when I look at these two teams, both offensively gifted. And I think the thing that's going to dictate who's going to win this one is who's going to go get the easy points out in transition. And so I think that's going to be the biggest thing for these two teams. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, like to get the easy, like these teams, clearly there's going to be an elevated level of like oomph, after a tight playoff series last year and two wildly different games this year, and it's the Hicks and the Knicks, man. It goes back for a while, right? Like these teams are both slightly below average on defense and much better on offense, right? So
Mm-hmm.
making that kind of game as easy as possible, I think is going to be kind of important for both teams. And transitions the way to do that. That's easier said than done. You have to actually get stops, right, for that to be a way you can play. The Pacers have tried to make it their identity to play fast, even when they're not getting stops, and that can be really challenging. The easiest way is to play good defense, get your rebounds, and go. So I think that this sounds so obvious, right? But like whatever team actually raises their level defensively to the point that they can play in transition, because I imagine there'll be similar levels of half court teams tomorrow. I think they'll have a big advantage just because of the kind of games these have become, and I hope it's actually close because the other two this season were not, and we didn't get to see crunch time. But I agree with you that that'll be pretty important. And look, I Cat has been a boogeyman for the Pacers at times. I mean, he is for
Mm.
everybody, right? Like he's amazing, but they've got to find a way to make it at least tough for him in a way that doesn't just make it easy for everybody else, right? And if that was easy to do or even possible to do, every team would do it. But if he just is popping out over Miles Turner, dragging him away from the rim, making everything, and forcing the Pacers to play high on the ball so they can't get the ball to the big, like they're just going to be out of rotation all night. And so I think their defense on Cat in particular is going to be the thing that I'm watching closest.
And I think that's going to be the same thing for like Miles Turner. It's like it's going to be just the same, right? I mean, Cat not necessarily known for his defense, but if you're going to have Turner who's shooting 40% from downtown and being consistent with it, then it's like the same thing. And so that's why this matchup is like it's like the Spider-Man meme. They're just pointing at each other. You got two dynamic
Yeah.
point guards who can just set guys up, and then you got two bigs that can knock down threes, and then you got versatile wings. Unfortunately, we don't have OG Anunoby to go defend against
Is he
Pascal
officially
Siakam.
out?
He's questionable for tomorrow. I expect them to take it easy. I mean, I'd be impressed. I'd be shocked, honestly, if he plays tomorrow. I know he's designated as questionable, but I would be shocked just because this is a guy who has extensive injury history. You have this game, the Hawks, and then the break. And this
Yeah.
guy, prior to getting injured, before they had that mini three break before playing the Sacramento Kings about 2 3 weeks ago, this guy looked like he needed the All Star break badly. And so now you have a little injury with him. I think they're going to be careful with him just because he's so important for what this team needs in the postseason that I don't really see them rushing anything. And like that's a guy just like Mitchell Robinson. I'd rather him be healthy and not chance anything because this is a guy who even returned last season and then had to miss more time again. So I think they take it careful with him. That's my thought, but I could also be wrong.
Miles Turner has a neck injury, and I was kind of thinking the same. Like he's listed questionable. He practiced on Monday, but it's like they play the Knicks and then the Wizards. I mean, just get to the break, right? Like I don't know. It's so easy for us to say that. Like we're not the teams or the players. This I think the Knicks game will mean a little bit more, but I'm with especially with OG, right? Like he's so important. You got to be careful.
Same thing with Turner, man. This is where I'm
Yeah.
going back. This is the Spider-Man meme. So like with all these things where like we have no idea who's gonna play tomorrow, like everyone's questionable, this, that, and the third. There is one matchup that I can guarantee will happen tomorrow, and that's why it's my key matchup for this game, and that is none other than Miles. I'm sorry, not Miles. Where am I going? Mikal Bridges. Thinking too many. We got Miles McBride on the team. Thinking Miles Bridges, Mikal Bridges versus Benedict Mathurin, and I think this is where the game's gonna be made for tomorrow. We know what Halliburton, we know what Brunson can do, we know what we know what Turner can do. I think it's gonna come down to your third guys, your wing guys who can play defense, who can score. I really think that's going to be the difference maker in this matchup. So Bridges, he's gotten comfortable this season, as you noted. He was having like a tough time figuring out his shot. He's now looking like Rip Hamilton on some nights, just getting to his spots, working off screens, knocking down middies. He knows how to work off ball and cut. He's done a phenomenal job. And then when you watch Benedict Mathurin, he's just taken a step this year. And I know he was surely missed last year, especially in the postseason, but he's looking like that dynamic wing that Indy was looking for him to be. And he's just doing that. What is your thought on this matchup?
It's really interesting with those two guys because they are really good and important to their teams and the lineups they're a part of. I don't think they're going to guard each other. Do you? Like, I'd imagine Bridges and Anunoby, if Anunoby plays, will be on Halliburton and Siakam in some way, and I'd guess Nemhard's on Brunson, and then Matherin's on Josh Hart. Maybe he ends up on Mikal.
Yeah.
Like they tried to hide Halliburton on one of the wings last time. So I'll be curious how, and I still think it's a key matchup because of that, because like that cross match, it gets really confusing when you get into transition, and who's your guy? Are you getting the guy who just had you? How's that gonna go? And if they are cross matching the whole game, like the Knicks tried it last playoffs with Hartenstein on Siakam at times, like when you're getting into that level of granularity in a regular season games, things get confusing. So maybe they just keep it simple, but yeah, that makes it even more important is that their role in this specific game requires them to do something unique in terms of who they're guarding and why. And so, yeah, their possessions against each other will be fascinating. They both have massively important roles. Like I said, Matherin has some nights, like the Knicks saw earlier this season, where he looks great. So does Bridges, right? He's a 40-point game this season, if I'm not mistaken. They both can go crazy at any time. But if in this kind of game, when it is very situational who you're guarding and depending on who's on the floor, if you're even guarding your position, your like level of focus to detail and how you're fitting in really matters even more because that kind of game plan just requires so much different stuff of you. So those kind of games for Matherin can be tricky, which is why his scoring can be important. But hey, the Knicks have a lot of good defensive players that have not led to a great defensive product. So I'll be very fascinated to see how those two do, especially against each other.
Oh yeah, I could totally see Matherin get it. You said Matherin's going to get the Brunson assignment.
No, Andrew Nemhard's getting the
Oh,
Brunson.
Nemhard. Okay, okay,
The
that
problem
makes
with
sense.
that is Nemhard's been their best defender this season, but in the playoffs last year, Brunson acted like he wasn't even there and just shot over him and scored every time. So I don't know what they're going to do because they're not starting Neesmith, and that was their playoff adjust. I don't know. That's what I expect to happen, but we'll see if there's any steps forward in that
Mm.
process.
Put the Spider-Man graphic up, man. That's what we need right now. That's good God. This
We should
team,
have worn
these two teams,
Spider-Man masks for this. We would have been all over it.
absolutely. This is where I'm looking for. Like, if these two teams match up again in the postseason, it's going to be
Yeah.
another. It's going to be another barn burner. All right, Tony. Let's wrap this thing up and call this thing a show. Let's get to our X factors, man. And since you're the guest, who do you think your X factor for this matchup is?
That's a good question. Might be Nemhard, honestly, for that reason. Like he just had probably his worst game of the season. They played the Lakers in LA on Saturday. He didn't hit a shot. I think he only took one, and he's out there to defend Austin Reeves. And I think everybody saw how many points Austin Reeves had in that game, right? He had 45. He killed him. They were trying to double him. He slipped. Like he did not play well. And when Nemhard's out there to guard and be your secondary creator, and he does none of those things, their starting lineup doesn't work. It doesn't do anything, right? They aren't getting any stops. They aren't able to penetrate. It's harder for them to set up good shots. So I think it's going to be him. Look, no one can stop air quotes Jalen Brunson, but just making it a little tougher, make him work. And then on the other end of the floor, like Halliburton gets a lot of attention. Siakam gets a lot of attention. It's up to him to slither into those gaps and kind of make sure he can get his own or set up other guys. The Knicks saw him hit the biggest shot of his life, right? Like when he can play like that guy in some games, he can swing games for the Pacers. There's a reason they've started him at every turn, even though he plays the same position, even though he's very versatile as Halliburton, right? And so if he doesn't have a night where he's impacting the game in the ways he can at his best, the Pacers starting five is going to be kind of flimsy, and I think they're going to have a little bit of trouble keeping up. But if he can have a strong impact on either end of the floor, I think he's my Pacers X factor for sure.
Okay, so you're going with
Who's your Knicks side guy?
you said you were going with Matherin, right? As your X
I'm going
factor.
Nemhard. Yeah.
Oh, Nemhard. Sorry. God, Nebhard. Jesus, my brain is like all over the place right now, man. It's one of those nights. But Nebhard is your X factor, and I'm going with Precious Achua. I'm going with
Ooh.
Precious because here's the thing. Oh, if OG doesn't play, that means Precious is probably getting thrown out into the starting lineup just because Tom Thibodeau wants to start out big and just go make sure that you're getting defense out there, making sure you get rebounds. That's what Precious is supposed to be bringing to this lineup. I know fans out there would love to say Miles McBride gets out there to really space the floor and knock down threes. And trust me, I get that thought. Like I said, I would have expected that against the Boston Celtics just because Precious against that five doesn't really make sense. In this one, I'm probably going to lean with Precious just because, look, Pascal Siakam's out there. If we don't have OG Anunoby, that's going to be Precious's job. Now, Precious, I'm not expecting the same defense that OG would put on Pascal Siakam, but I think that's what you're going to go with and just try to slow down Siakam as much as possible, because if Siakam gets going, I feel like that just unlocks everything for everybody else, considering what you said earlier in the show is that he's been the most consistent player. And so Precious being able to do that, just not stop him, but slow him down, make his night difficult. That's why I'm calling him my X factor, because he's going to be the key guy to slow down. Obviously, we know what Halliburton can do. We know what Turner can do. But Pascal Siakam, to me, is that key for what the Pacers are, why the Pacers are really thriving this year. So if you can just disrupt him a little bit, then I think the Knicks will be in a good position. So I'm going with Precious Achiuwa. You're going with Nembhard. Two defensive guys, man. That's the whole thing. Who's going to be slowing who's top guy? I like that, man. I like those are the two X factors for tomorrow's game. Very
Toronto
good.
Teammates, Precious versus Pascal again, or OG versus Pascal, man. That's how it goes.
I mean, if OG's playing tomorrow, that'd be great. And then that'd truly be like, yo, we truly know what each other's moves are. We know what each other likes to do. That'd be phenomenal. But part of me, man, rest OG. Just take a night off, man. Take the next 2 night offs, man. On me, on the house. Don't worry about it. But Tony, I appreciate you previewing this game with me, my man. Please let the listeners know where they can find you. If you got any work up and coming, we should be on the lookout for.
Pacers are apparently about to sign Jahlil Okafor to a 10-day.
I did see that.
Yeah, I chatted with him earlier this season about his grind back to the NBA. So that's a pretty cool story. I got some stuff coming on that. Every Fever thing under the sun. They've signed 5 free agents. So if you're interested in the Indiana Fever, I got you covered there too.
All right, I know Jahlil Okafor. That's the guy that you've really been looking for. The guy who can just that's the guy who's really going to turn this thing around.
If he plays, 1, that means Miles Turner didn't play, and 2, that means the Pacers are probably either winning or losing by a lot of points.
Oh, man. But salute to Knicks Nation, and salute to, I see some Pacers fan in here. Salute to all you guys for tapping in for another show. Appreciate all of you. Make sure that thumbs up button for your boys. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. And make sure to support our sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. Use that promo code KFTV to get up to $1,000 in instant bonus cash and a free pick. And look, people, if you can't catch the show live, you know what you can do? You can find us on any audio listening platform, Apple, Spotify, Google Play, Amazon, Alexa, Stitcher, you name it. We are there. On top of that, if you can't catch a show live, you can also go back and be replay gang. Go to YouTube. Go to youtube.com/KnicksFanTV and go catch this thing on YouTube. And keep supporting us like the way that you do. We appreciate all the support as always. And support to the franchise channel members, guys. I see John Talento in here. I see Nostalgic Nick. I see Wise Guy. I see Apostle in the making. Shout out to all you guys, man. Shout out to all you guys for being here. Appreciate you. You're all the regulars. Make sure you hit that thumbs up button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. And look, guys, Knicks Pacers tomorrow. You know it's going to be a barn burner. These guys are going to be putting up points. So why not go support Underdog Fantasy? All right, everyone. We'll catch you later. Make sure to catch post-game live tomorrow and play-by-play. All right, everyone. We out.